hell am I now?
Hey, Sol.
Theta? What happened?
You broke through my barrier, but don't worry. I siphoned the infection in your arm out. It shouldn't bother you, at least for a while.
Thanks.
In all honesty, you were in that room a lot longer than I thought you'd be. I assumed you'd break out 5 minutes after I left.
Well, glad I passed your little test. So, did you talk to Alpha?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say? Is he gonna leave me alone?
He said no.
No? He said no?
Yeah, and you know, what he says goes.
Well, if he wanted you to get rid of me, why didn't you just kill me right away?
Yes, well, I wanted to talk to you, but
Oh, just shut up! I'm tired of being jerked around like this!
Ha, you think you're the one getting jerked around? I'm the one who has to travel all over the world killing people I don't even know!
Oh, boo-hoo! Yeah, I'm sure tormenting people and trapping them in their tiny, smelly rooms is really hard on you! You don't have any right to complain!
What, you think I want to do any of this shit? You think I care about the world? I don't. I don't care about you, I don't care about Alpha, I don't care about anything.
Well, if you don't care, why don't you just run away?
Because I can't! I can't run away. I gave up my life once. I was living a life so mundane, so soul-crushing, I felt my very existence being pulled from me. So I tried to escape. I ended my life, and Alpha took it from me and made it eternal. And the only chance that I have is making sure that I listen to him. Otherwise, I'm stuck in this eternal torment. So will you let me do my job?
No. I don't think so. Hey everybody, Sol here. I have only one rule here. If it's animated, I'll comment on it. And I'm inside a book now. I guess the history book. You know, apparently I can do that. I guess I just discover all these weird powers and I'm scared or something. Books. Yeah, I mean, books are cool and everything. So, I need something book-related so that I can tie it together with the theme. How about a semi-obscure anime series known as Dantalian no Shoka, aka the Mystic Archives of Dantalian? Sure, why not, you know, why not? Dantalian no Shoka, aka the Mystic Archives of Dantalian, is a seinen anime series produced by Gainax that is an adaptation of the 2008 light novel series of the same name written by Gakuto Mikumo. The series aired on TV Tokyo in 2011 with a total of 12 episodes over one season, with an OVA episode airing later in 2012 known as Ibara Hime. Alrighty, time to ignore the pressing issues of the present once again as we skim our way through Dantalian no Shoka. Okay, here's something I don't talk about much on this show. World War I. Animation, as well as fiction in general, seems to like to skip that international skirmish in favor of its bigger, meaner brother, World War II. Since things weren't just a clusterfuck of alliances, betrayals, borders, and general mayhem in that war. So it's neat to see an anime series that takes place in post-World War I England. I mean, hey, at least it isn't a fucking high school, right? Anyway, yes, in post-World War I England, a veteran pilot of the Air Force by the name of Hugh Anthony Disward travels to his late grandfather's estate to take possession of it. However, when he arrives, he finds a young, haughty girl named Dalian, whom he has been instructed to take care of. Though it turns out that Dalian is a keeper of the forbidden library of knowledge known as the Bibliotheca Mystica de Dantalian, which houses 900,666 gensho, or phantom books. Accepting him as her keykeeper and guardian, Dalian and Huey take it upon themselves to free people from the chaos the phantom books can cause, and store them safely in the forbidden archives where no man can ever obtain them. Well, holy piss and fractured spleens, this premise is quite awesome! So why is it that my bullshit bells are ringing off the hook? This, by all rights, should be a fascinating intellectual look into a world of phantasmagorical literary works, but instead it's more just like... Not that I think it's bad, it's just... underwhelming. But I'll get into more detail on that a little bit later. For now, this is all I can think to say about what the plot is like.
Books are fun.
Gasp! Could it be an anime series with less characters than your average high school graduation ceremony? Color me sunny day surprised right here. Yes, I generally find that I'm more fond of anime series that have a core cast of characters, instead of just shitting a ton of underdeveloped people on the screen in hopes you'll write cringy fanfiction about them. And in this regard, we have Hugh Anthony Disward, a retired fighter pilot of the Royal Air Force who adopts a new life as keykeeper to Dalian when he adopts her as per his late grandfather's will. Huey is an amiable chap, almost to a fault. He just never seems to question all the weird shit that gets flung his way, which, in a way, is a little refreshing. He doesn't agonize over trivial nonsense like your typical shonen anime protagonist, but at the same time, that does mean he leaves a lot less of an impact. Huey doesn't respond to Dalian's abuse, or his childhood friend Camilla's weirdness, or really anything at all. I mean, he's the kind of guy who can pull a book out of a young girl's chest, kill a golem with poetry, and then have tea and scones later like it's nothing. Still, it's hard to say I dislike Huey. He's just such a nice, quiet, calm man that it's difficult not to get swept up in his charm. I mean, come on, he fights monsters with a bitchin' World War I era revolver and the power of reading. Isn't that just the epitome of awesomeness? Maybe I can use the power of reading to get out of my predicament here. Let me take a look here. How to increase your breast size in 6 minutes. I could see this working. While I figure out how to make that work, let's talk about Dalian. Dalian is a brash, frank girl who happens to be the keeper of the mythical Bibliotheca Mystica de Dantalian, which protects and archives the many phantom books containing forbidden knowledge that man must never know. She acknowledges Huey as her new keykeeper and supplies him with the books needed to settle situations involving other phantom books, as well as scarf down more than her fair share of sweet snacks. Whew, the tsundere is strong in this one, it is. Dalian has your typical, completely abrasive, argumentative personality that belies her obvious affection for Huey, and to me, that's just a big old bucket of nope. Not that I have a serious problem with tsundere characters, I just don't understand the appeal to them whatsoever. And in all fairness, Dalian isn't the most egregious example of a tsundere, and she does have a cute moment here and there, but she's still aggravating enough to make me want to lightly kick a stuffed animal or something. Now then, there are some other minor characters, such as the aforementioned Camilla Keynes, Huey's childhood friend who dresses in odd clothing, claiming them to be the latest fashion trends from around the world, Armand Jeremiah, Huey's subordinate from the Air Force who's a hopeless romantic, Hal Kamhout, a Libricide officer who travels around England, burning phantom books along the way as keepkeeper of Flamberge, the brusque, dirty-minded guardian of the long-lost library. With the exception of Armand, who is way too annoying for his own good, I don't mind any of these characters. They all have some fun sides to them that make them entertaining to watch, and in all honesty, I just wish they were featured more. Ah, yes, that is a problem, I suppose, but we're gonna save that for later. Oh, and by the way, it did work. It did work, but it didn't help me out of my predicament at all, so... yeah, well, better luck next time, right? Now then, let's begin by... Anyway, do you hear something? Oh shit! Bookworms! Now, it's against my alignment to blow my load too early on the things that make a series good or bad, but this time my load was decidedly blown a few minutes ago with the plot. Yes, I do truly think that the scenario and plot that this series has is its strongest feature. As I said, you don't often see this setting in anime, or cartoons in general, so it's a welcome change of pace, I'd say. The plot itself is where it really slipperies my scrotum though, since I really like the idea of fighting monsters and shit with nothing more than the power of the written word. It's nice to see a badass confrontation between man and beast that isn't all screaming, ridiculously huge muscles and particle effects. It's a clash between brawn and intellectualism that isn't often seen, so it gets one big thumb up its ass for that. Maybe I'm reading far too deep into it, and yes, you do have permission to sigh wearily at that pun, but I just think that this series has a buttload of merit and potential in its concept alone, with a solid presentation and simplistic elegance throughout that keeps it from shriveling into a boring mess of worthlessness. But unfortunately, you can't pay your bills with potential, can you? I mean, if you could, no one would ever be homeless, right? Well, yeah, but I guess now it's time to move on to the bad things, mi amigos. Hey, do I get any cell phone reception in here? I'm wondering if you can order pizza inside of a book. Having potential is one thing, and I've given props to quite a few things for having such a thing. Thing. But to me, that's not really good enough. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, after all, and that's a huge part of the problem with this series. Because the series is so short, and it tries to establish such a big story inside itself, it just becomes bloated and cluttered. It's a shame to say so, since I could see this series becoming something great, but it suffers from one fatal flaw, a complete and utter lack of focus. Now, this series does have a little bit of everything. A little action, a little intrigue, a little horror, a little romance, a little humor, and so on, meaning that at the very least one small aspect of it will appeal to everyone, but it never excels at anything particular. It's just average with nearly all of its facets, making it seem like much more of a confusing mess than it actually is. The root of the problem is that it tries to be bigger than it actually is. It tries to tie multiple storylines together in the span of 12 episodes, as well as establish all the characters and their backstories, in addition to the overarching mystery going on, and it all just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up until you just stop giving a shit. I've watched this series multiple times, and I still don't understand half of it. Not for lack of trying, it's just extremely tight-lipped with its details because it literally has no time for details. It almost feels like the entire series is a Cliff Notes version of itself, or like a party platter of assorted light snacks. Sure, they're tasty and aesthetically presentable, but you wouldn't exactly say they fill you up like a real meal. And speaking of that, there is no cell phone reception inside of a book. Damn, I want pizza. Okay, so this is a pretty strange one, people. It's not that I think this episode is terrible or anything, it's just really fucking weird. And that would have to be Eichi no Sho, aka Book of Wisdom. In this episode, Huey and Dalian hear from Camilla that her friend was teaching a classroom full of children who suddenly became incredibly intelligent from the effects of a phantom book. So Huey and Dalian go to investigate, but are surprised by what they find. Now, like I said, I don't hate this episode, it's just really, really odd. There's literally no resolution. It reminds me of that episode of Mushishi Omoi Mi, aka Heavy Seed, where it should have been a much bigger deal to create an immortal person than it was, but here it's more about creating hyper-intelligent children and then just leaving them to their own devices. Again, not terrible, just very confusing overall. Alrighty, now we're getting into the real good shit here. This is actually one of my favorite episodes of anything ever, much like the Ultimate Enemy from Danny Phantom or the Aku infection from Samurai Jack. My favorite episode overall has to be Kankon no Sho, aka Book of Soul Exchange. In this episode, Dalian is reading a series of books known as Crown of the Dog Days, whereupon she gets pissed because she doesn't have the third volume in the series. However, the author, Lenny Lentz, was purportedly killed before finishing the third book. But when Huey receives a letter from the supposedly late Lentz himself, he and Dalian go to investigate his supposed death, all under the watchful eye of Lenny's wife, Paula Lentz. The best way to describe this episode would be like the Stephen King novel Misery, but even scarier. I don't want to give away too many details, since I definitely think this is an episode worth checking out, but let's just say I can't think of many things more terrifying than being entrapped by someone who is completely beyond reasoning and who'd be willing to do anything for you.
Anything.
Dantalian no Shoka is very much like a bag of munchies. It's guaranteed to have something to satisfy at least everyone, but after a while you find yourself craving a full bag of Doritos or Sun Chips or whatever. And if that's a little bit too hypothetical for you to grasp, then let me just summate it by saying that it's a whole lot of things, but it is certainly not a whole thing, and that is certainly disappointing. I give Dantalian no Shoka
3 eyes out of 5.
So, Dantalian no Shoka. Is it watchable? I would say that it is. It has a nice, peaceful, charming, wartime England aesthetic to it that definitely keeps your eyes focused and keeps your eyeballs from drooping. Is it enjoyable? Well, kinda. Like I said repeatedly, there's gonna be one thing here and one thing there that appeals to everyone to a certain degree, but it doesn't excel at any one thing in particular. Is it memorable? No, it is not. Every time I talk about this series, everyone always thinks I'm talking about Go-Sick, but I'm not, and that's a real shame. I would love to see this series come back in the future for some more episodes. I mean, there's definitely worse things out there you can watch. Does anybody else smell burning?
Want to stay up to date with all the latest EyeofSol news? You can follow me on Twitter as well as on Facebook at twitter.com/EyeofSol299 and facebook.com/EyeofSol. I update them every day, so if you want to check out news on the show as well as updates, just follow the links here.